Welcome to another edition of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we have Miss Natasha Paul from the I'm Set podcast. What's going on?
Nothing much, Mike. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the shout out, the lookout.
Yeah, of course, of course. Now we're going to get into a little draft talk, and going to talk a little bit about those Baltimore Ravens as well, and that great day they had on draft day.
You
But before we
finally
get
did
into that,
something.
yeah, definitely, finally. But before we get into that, I start off my show with a little bit of something I have to get off my chest every single episode. It's called the Get It Off Your Chest segment. So this episode, I want to talk about LeBron James and Steph Curry. Now, LeBron James and Steph Curry will be facing each other again, and they're not a stranger to each other. Of course, they've seen each other in the finals multiple times. But this year, it's not the finals. It's the second round of the NBA playoffs. Everyone's excited and talking about different things. And then here comes some of those folks that really don't like LeBron James. Now, I get it. LeBron does some things that irritates people, and I completely understand, but many players do it. It's just that he does it on a bigger level because he at one point was the best player in the NBA. But, the thing where I think it goes like way too far is when you hear Lakers fans say that they're not going to be Lakers fans until LeBron's not on their team anymore. At that point, it's gone way too far. I mean, can you not enjoy that you have one of the greatest players of all time playing on your team, that he's actually trying to play through injuries, that he's actually doing things to try to lead this team? Sure, he does things in a demonstrative way, and he calls this and calls that. He does those different things, and sure, he complains to the referees, but, if you really want to look at it, everyone complains to the referees. He's not the only one. And if you really want to talk about flopping, which that's the biggest thing that a lot of people bring up about him, you can go all the way back to Vlade Divac. Vlade Divac was the master and the inventor of the flop. So, to be honest, in this matchup, the Lakers, the Warriors, enjoy watching great players. Steph Curry does great things on the floor. Quit downplaying his game. He is one of the greatest of all time as well. Just enjoy great players playing basketball instead of trying to dissect why you don't like this person or why you don't like this, that, and the other. And to all the Lakers fans that do not like the Lakers when LeBron James is on there, but they're going to go back when he's off the team, y'all really weren't fans of the Lakers to begin with. That's the Get Off Your Chest segment from me, Mike Patton, on the Get On the Show. So you got something to add to that?
I definitely have something to add to that, because the funny thing about it is I'm a huge Heat fan. I actually came to the United States in 1988 when the Heat became a franchise, right? So I've been Heat lifer. And when LeBron was coming to Miami, I didn't want him to come to Miami. I was like, oh God, LeBron's so annoying. He is so annoying, in my opinion. And guess what? When he was here, I was the biggest LeBron fan ever. Like, go do your thing, complain as much as you want to the refs, get your calls. I'm for it. And when he left, I was like, deuces. Thanks for the rings.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's like, look, your great players are always going to have something that annoys you about them. It just is what it is.
Right.
But to take it to a whole nother level, sometimes it just gets way too blown out of proportion for me. That's just me. But, speaking of things getting blown out of proportion, let's talk about the NFL draft. Now, there's a few things that people are blowing out of proportion there. That would be that this team had the greatest draft ever and that this other team had just did so horribly. But we're going to get into that. But the first thing I want to ask about is the podcast. I can't bring you on and not talk about your show.
Thank you so much.
If you can, tell me about how the idea kind of started kicking around about your podcast, I'm Set.
Absolutely. So, Set is an idea sprung from Denisha Roll. She is the wife of former NFL player Samari Roll. And she has always been really into media and, wanting to start going into this world. So she founded Set, I think in like 2009 or 10. It's been a while that it's been around, and she has been, putting out publications. She's had Layla Ali, Floyd Mayweather, just to name a few people on her covers. And, she's been doing really good. So a few years ago, we actually met while I was covering a Heat game, and I was waiting in line to go and do the post game interviews. And she called me, Sports Talk Tasha. Now it's rare for at that point, people don't know me as Sports Talk Tasha. So I'm looking around and I see her, and she's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you. I'm adding you on Instagram right now. Hit me up." So that's how we got to know each other. And we've been talking about this for a long time. So at the beginning of the year, I called her. I was like, "Hey, Denisha, when are we doing this? First of all, Happy New Year. And when are we doing this?" Like, because sometimes to take that leap and to take that plunge, you need a little push. And I guess that was the push. Me calling her was the push that she needed. So we had already decided that Adriana Smith, who is the third person on the podcast, was going to be a part of the show. And Adriana and I actually convinced Denisha that she needed to be on the show because Set is her baby. Like, she's the face of Set, so she needed to be on the show. And really what it is we're yes, we are a sports and that's what Set stands for, Sports and Entertainment Today. So it's not just sports, but the difference with us is that we are looking at it from a woman's perspective. So I'm the person on the show that knows the stats and the players and, what all's going on. And Denisha is like the lifestyle aspect of it. She's been behind the scenes as a wife of a player. She's been behind the scenes with other wives and girlfriends. So she understands that world. And then Adriana, she's a former both Miami Heat and Miami Dolphins dancer. So she knows that side of the world. So we come together and it's just very varying perspectives. And, I'm sort of like the goofy one on the show. If you get to know me, I'm super laid back and I love cracking jokes. And, you follow me on social media, I'm always ranting about something. So
Right.
that's just me. That's just me. So that's how that came about. And now we have Set. We're going into our second season, which we are going to start filming on June 19th.
Nice, nice. Well, I caught a couple shows, and I definitely saw the one with you had Dwayne Bowe and his wife on there.
Right.
I saw that one. Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. I will say that when you put out opinions, you're gonna usually put out a strong opinion.
I
And
am.
so folks that are gonna listen and watch the show, get ready.
So
Definitely.
everybody knows I am highly opinionated and not afraid to tell you exactly how I feel. So yeah, that's me.
Right. I definitely enjoyed it. Of course, definitely I look forward to the second season and all that it has to offer you all. And I did not know that Samari Roll's wife is actually the kind of the I guess the linchpin of the entire thing. Which,
Yes.
I've got to talk to you. I got a question to ask you after the show, but we'll talk after that. But
Sure, sure.
But we got to get into the NFL. The NFL draft just happened, and a lot of young kids had their dreams achieved, and they became NFL players. In a sense, they become NFL players. They started
Right.
to sign contracts, go to camp, things like that. Some of them were in great moments and put in great spots, and others, you just kind of wonder what the team maybe was thinking. So I'm going to ask you, in your opinion, kind of looking at the draft, looking at different boards, looking at different needs of teams, who do you think actually had a good draft, in your opinion?
So I'm actually going to stay in the AFC South. I think the Texans had a good draft. It was well balanced. The Texans last season, they were like this close in so many games to getting that W. I mean, it had to have been like the most heartbreaking thing for them because they were always right there. That loss to the Cowboys, like, it was right there, and you're rooting for them because they're the underdog, and you want them to do well and get to where they want to be, but they were always right there. So I think that they actually, what they had, like 9 draft picks, something
They
like
had
that.
a lot.
They had a lot.
Not
They
as lot as not a lot as Jacksonville, but they had a lot.
Yeah, I think Jackson had a lot, but they addressed a lot of needs, and I don't think obviously it's not going to be like a complete 180 this season from last season. They're building something, and I like what they're building. So I think they had a pretty good draft. Um, like I said, they addressed a lot of their needs. Yeah, they were
Mhm.
very aggressive, and I liked seeing that. And
Mhm.
we'll see how it plays out for them.
Yeah, definitely. Getting C.J. Stroud was a huge thing for them because if they had to try out their Davis Mills or Case
Hmm.
Keenum as the wily veteran, then it would have been the same thing they had this year.
Right,
And
right.
then you bring in you trade up to go get Will Anderson Jr. is probably the best pass rusher in the draft. I mean, it just to me, they did a lot of the things that are requisite for a team to get better in
Of
this draft. Now the thing is, they have to still develop them on the field. However, they did get
course.
a good start with the talent that they did add as well. Do you have any other teams that you can think of would be, you know, maybe had a great draft for you in your opinion?
Let's see. A great draft, in my opinion. I mean, I want to stick with my home team because, well, they're not my home team per se, but they're my team. But the Ravens, they finally did something. Like, we've been waiting for this as Baltimore fans. We have been waiting for something to happen. And not only did they finally sign Lamar, thank God. Like, I always felt that in the end that was going to be the result for the Ravens, that Lamar was going to stay with the team, because how could you possibly let him go? Like, that's not, it doesn't make sense to me. The people, the front office at the Ravens, they've always made pretty smart decisions, I feel. That's why they have won Super Bowls with, yeah, Trent Dilfer as their quarterback. So
Right.
so they've always been pretty smart as an organization. So I knew, you know in the back of my mind, they were going to do the right thing and make sure that happened. But finally giving him some talent to work with, and just again, just making things make sense for the organization. So I'll tell you one thing. I was very impressed by a lot of the teams as the way they drafted and how they positioned things. Obviously, the Jaguars, with the number of picks they had, it's incredible to have that many picks. And you're going to do some damage with those. That I mean, we all know, like, yes, the first rounders and the second rounders, but where you really find your hidden gems is the middle rounders of the draft. It's very rare that Mr. Irrelevant is going to come out and win 6 games in a row for you. So
Right.
yeah. So with that many picks, they have a good shot of doing some damage. I mean, they were right there last year. They just need a little bit more help, and I'm sure they could have found it with those middle round picks.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. As far as Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm talking to you, Travis Holmes, and you, Kyle Nash. Y'all said y'all didn't get no picks. I'm like, look, hey, you got so many picks. You got chances that you can miss on and still have a good draft. I tried to
Right.
explain this. They didn't want to hear me. So you heard Natasha Paul tell y'all
With
that
with
they had a good draft.
Yeah, with that many picks, you can't go wrong. Like, how do you screw it up? It's like you, you can't go wrong. Something's got to give.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I also want to get into who had the worst draft. We're going to get into that maybe a little bit further on down the line. Of course, first thing we got to take a commercial break. We're going to get into that actually after the commercial break on Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton.
Whether it's local or long distance, Milligan Logistics has you covered. Milligan Logistics was established in 2020 with over a combined 15 years of experience in trucking, hauling, and logistics, along with over 50 years collectively of project management experience. Again, whether it's near or far, Milligan Logistics has you covered with quality service, efficiency while taking pleasure in exceeding clients' expectations. Need goods moved short or long distance? Milligan Logistics has you covered. Just reach out to them at 615-354-2618. That's 615-354-2618. Or you can send them an email at milliganlogistics@gmail.com. Again, that's milliganlogistics@gmail.com.
All right, and we are back. We talked about the winners in this year's draft. You talked about the Texans, and then you talked about the Baltimore Ravens. But with some winners, there's always got to be some losers. And I'm pretty sure you've got some losers on your mind that were in that NFL draft. The floor is yours. Which one would you say first?
Listen, I am like Issa Rae. I'm rooting for everybody black, right? But Rand Carthon, I have no idea what he was doing.
Oh.
I'm perplexed because, and his response to, why would you draft an entire draft with just offense? His response is what really got me. Is like, oh, I didn't even realize it. It was just how our draft board was going. I mean, okay, listen. He's coming from a very solid organization. The 49ers have built their players, their team from, drafting and trading and doing whatever. They've made solid moves. So he's had great mentorship. I think the last 2 or 3 seasons he's with them, he was the player personnel development of player. Yeah, so he's been in that role. And it's one thing to just stack a draft and it just be straight offense, but it's another thing to say, oh, I didn't realize it. Well, that's your job. That's your job to realize it. Like, you have to know, somebody needs to be there and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, are we not going to address the defense at all? Is it just offense that we're dealing with? Like, and these teams, these front office people, they come in there and they know what, give or take, they're going to do. And obviously the way the draft is flowing plays a role, but they have an idea of what's going on. They pretty much know who they want to take in each round. They know where they fall, and they know where people are generally going to fall based on talking to other teams or whatever it is that they do. But for him to say, I didn't realize, I was a little flabbergasted by that response. And I couldn't even,
Well, one thing I will say is that, the interesting pick that's kind of drawing a little bit of rave reviews from some, and some that are scratching their head, is Will Levis at quarterback. And, a lot of people are kind of, scratching their head there. But, one thing I will say, the Titans, offensively were ranked in the, the bottom parts of the NFL, even with Derrick Henry. So I can kind of get why they did that in terms of that. But the biggest gripe that a lot of people are having is they waited to the 7th round to draft a wide receiver, and they were kind of a little porous at the wide receiver position last year. So that's probably, I would think, the biggest thing I would have in terms of, I don't have any problem with them drafting all offense. I just have a problem with, hey, why do we not go with a wide receiver here earlier? That's the biggest thing I thought about when I looked at this board.
The other thing too is like you were saying about the wide receiver. Okay, so I'm okay with the Will Levis pick as well. It can go either way. It really can go either way. And they didn't pick him up in the first round. They got him in the second, which is kind of a steal, whatever. Considering he's projected to go into the top 5 and all, whatever. So they got him in the second round, but I'm okay with that because I've been saying for years that Ryan Tannehill is not it. He's not it. And it shows how much he wasn't it, because you have AJ Brown going from the Titans to the Eagles and putting up almost 500 additional yards in offense just because he actually had a quarterback. And remember, I said this when Dwayne Bowe was on the I'm Set podcast. I said this. He reminded me a lot of AJ Brown, or AJ Brown reminds me a lot of Dwayne Bowe, and Dwayne didn't have that star quarterback at all, ever. And then, AJ goes over to the Eagles and he's stellar season. They go to Super Bowl. Tannehill could never do that. And I don't know what the experiment was, take a guy who played wide receiver in college and make him into a quarterback because he has arm strength. Like, I couldn't understand it from the beginning. When the Dolphins picked him up, I didn't understand it. And then when they got rid of him and took him when he went off to Tennessee, I was like, well, good for them. They finally made a good decision. But you guys, unfortunately, were the ones who, I mean, Tannehill had like flashes, but he was just never that person. So, with Will Levis, at least he played quarterback in college. So there's that. He is a little reckless at times. He does, certain things, but you can develop him. At least Tannehill is serviceable, so you can leave Tannehill in there if that's what they intend to do, and let Will kind of learn and do whatever he needs to do to get to that point. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that, but I just don't understand, like you said, also drafting a wide receiver all the way in the bottom rounds. That just didn't make any sense to me. You need
Well, I will
somebody
say,
to replace. You need somebody to replace AJ Brown.
well, I will say this: Traylon Burks, I think, will end up being the guy to replace him. I think with him being in camp, it probably would be a good thing for him to actually, because last year he wasn't really all the way in camp, and then he showed up out of shape, admittedly on his behalf. But yeah, you definitely need more than one weapon, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I would say, I'm rooting for the guy that got drafted in the 7th round because he actually went to the same college that I went to, UT.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm kind of rooting for him. So hopefully he does well. But do you have any other, maybe drafts that you looked at and you kind of scratched your heads a little bit?
God. Honestly, I didn't like how the Jets drafted. I don't really like anything that the Jets did in the offseason. Listen, everyone is saying, picking up Aaron Rodgers, they're instantly a Super Bowl contender. I don't see how that is actually true, because I don't remember the last time Aaron Rodgers has actually been to the Super Bowl. So there's that. Call me crazy.
That's honest.
Call me crazy, but then, I just feel like, okay, so you have Aaron Rodgers here, and he's your quarterback for now. He's not going to be your quarterback for long. This is maybe, it could be a one night stand or a one season stand, as it could be a one night stand for them. And they didn't really address that. Like, who is really going to be there to sit and learn from Aaron Rodgers, the MVP and all this, who doesn't actually mentor anybody. So there's that. But who can sit there and learn from him and come and replace Aaron Rodgers? Because at some point he's going to get replaced. And you don't know even if he is going to last 2 seasons. So, we know if things don't go exactly as Aaron Rodgers needs it to go or wants it to go, what he does is start pointing fingers at everybody else. He didn't catch my pass, or the offensive line didn't block for me, or anything like that. So they haven't addressed that glaring need at quarterback, which they could have done so in the draft.
Yeah, they definitely could have in terms of that. But I also want to remember too that unfortunately, I would say it's either fortunately or unfortunately for Jets fans, they do have Zach Wilson still there. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying it's a great or a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe he has some kind of revelation, but he is still there. I'm just throwing it out there.
Zach is probably perfect behind Aaron Rodgers, because he's like the unaccomplished Aaron Rodgers, because he's a finger pointer when things don't go his way. So Zach is the unaccomplished version of Aaron Rodgers. Like, but do you think Zach Wilson is going to be the quarterback of the future? The players don't even like him.
I was throwing a name out there. Just throwing a name.
we all saw when Mike White came in, the players got behind Mike White immediately. And it was like, I mean, did y'all forget that you have this quarterback that was drafted number 1 and that's supposed to be your future? So there's obviously a disconnect in that locker room when it comes to Zach Wilson. And I do like Salas. I think he's a good coach, and I wish him nothing but the best. But he's got to get his team in line. They all need to have that same vision and understand that they're all there for the same thing, and it's not there. But it goes beyond Robert Salas. I just don't think the Johnson family is well equipped to manage and run and own an NFL team. Chris Johnson was in England for many years. Not his brother was running the team, and then he came back and was like, "Okay, well, bye. I have no idea what you've been doing, but I'm just going to take over from here." So they have the Jets are an interesting organization. They're good for reality TV. They could put them, on what's that show at HBO? I keep forgetting the name.
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks. Put them on Hard Knocks. Give us some entertainment.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Hey, I do. Before we, kind of run out of time, I do want to talk about the Indianapolis Colts. We didn't kind of touch on them, but I do like it that they drafted Anthony Richardson. I mean, honestly, look at the Steichen. He actually coached Justin Herbert with the Los Angeles Chargers, and made him kind of helped his game, made him NFL ready. Then with Jalen Hurts, he was the coach there too. Kind of helped him get there as well to that next level. So I think with Anthony Richardson paired with him, with the talents that Anthony Richardson has, he could definitely take him to make him NFL ready, and potentially at one point take him to another level. I think it was a great pick.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And, I went to Florida State, and I'm a huge Seminole fan. So I watched, Anthony Richardson against us. And I watched other games too. And it's actually, that just tells you how bad the coaching was in Gainesville for them to not be able to capitalize on his talent, because he is very talented. And the things that he is able to do, I mean, his size, his speed, his ability to throw down the field, he has so many tangibles that are just waiting to be developed, and I believe that's a really good pick. And I'm with you on that one. I was actually totally okay with the Colts taking him so high.
Yeah, definitely. And then you got Josh Downs that they drafted, wide receiver out of North Carolina, and that guy can go get it. Now, imagine a guy with a rocket arm and a guy can go get it. I can only imagine them hooking up like Andrew Luck and T.Y. Hilton used to with deep passes. I can only imagine it already.
Yep, that was a beautiful thing. Those two together. It was very heartbreaking when Andrew left the Colts high and dry. Like, listen, I want to be able to walk, and I'm out. So I'll talk to you guys later. But I mean, it is what it is. And the Colts, like you said, they got some good pieces around them to develop. I think it's going to be a trying time, and they got to be very patient with AR, because he does need to learn a few things to get there to the level that they want him to be. But if they just don't expect him to just, do this amazing turnaround for them instantly, if they let him develop, get him a quarterback coach, and, make sure that they're doing the right things with him, I think it's going to be good for Indianapolis again. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's going to be a division of young quarterbacks, with Trevor Lawrence being the veteran quarterback of the crew, which is going to be interesting in its own right. And to be honest, I think I was talking on my AFC South draft special with a few of the guys, and we were talking about how this division is kind of shaping up to, in a couple of years, potentially be the division that has top quarterbacks all in it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, potentially. We'll see.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I mean, Will Levis still has to get there, and CJ Stroud. I'm not too worried about CJ Stroud. Trevor Lawrence, I think, is coming there. Is almost there, and I mean, the one guy I'm interested in, of course, is in Tennessee, Will Levis. I mean, I'll let you know this. I do the AFC South show, but I do support the Titans and hope they do well. But that's not my favorite team in the NFL. But yeah. So, I hope they do well, and but it's still just objectively looking at it. It's kind of going to be an interesting, situation to see how he develops, especially with not as many reps as a starter like he was used to in college. So that'll be interesting. So he's probably the only one that's not going to have a lot of reps like the other ones will.
Listen, I always say this: the NFL is the best form of reality TV there is on the planet. Like, the Real Housewives could never, ever. They wish. And that's what makes the NFL brand so good, because it's not just a game. It's really just really good entertainment.
Right. Now, I do have one last thing I want to go over with you, and
Okay.
I didn't really get to dive into that. And, I will say we kind of touched on it a little bit with the Ravens, but the Ravens probably had one of the best draft days they've had in a long time. You signed Lamar Jackson to the deal that makes him annually per year the highest paid player in the NFL. You draft him a wide receiver from Zay Flowers. You finally draft one. And then you pick up a few other guys that can help rush the passer, play defense, and an offensive lineman to protect
And
him.
an
I mean, you
offensive
hit
line.
all of them. You hit all the boxes. You
Everything.
checked all the boxes. And add on to that, you went and got OBJ, which is another weapon in the passing game. So you kind of checked all the boxes this offseason in 1 week.
And
So,
I still
I
think
it's great.
I was talking with Rita, and both of us, we still think that D-Hop is going to be a Raven.
Oh, wow! If that happens, that'll be a
Over.
pretty stacked. That'll be a pretty stacked wide receiver core. That would be a pretty stacked wide receiver core for sure. Now, one thing I always have to take to task people when they talk about Lamar, because they try to say, "Oh, Lamar's a running quarterback. He can't really throw." I'm like, look, did you all see him playing at Louisville?
Right.
In that offense, when he was playing at Louisville in that offense, he was throwing the football around the yard like nobody's business. It was when he got to the NFL and played for a particular offensive coordinator that he became a running quarterback. A particular offensive coordinator that did the same thing with Colin Kaepernick as well. That did the same thing in Buffalo with Tyrod Taylor. So if people want to get things, get the story right, you can do it at any point. But you got to remember that Greg Roman is the guy that kind of created all this. Not necessarily Lamar Jackson.
Well, I mean, they wanted Lamar to try out for the NFL at a wide receiver, not a whatever. So here's the thing. It's funny that you said watching Lamar in college. I told you, I went to Florida State, so obviously I'm a huge Seminoles fan. And the reason I was never a fan of an NFL team for a long time, because when I first came to the U.S., the first game I ever watched, the first NFL game I ever watched was the 1989 Super Bowl with Joe Montana and Boomer Esiason. I didn't go to the game. It was in Miami, but I, watched it on TV. And I instantly, after that game, I was a 49ers fan. I loved Joe Montana. I had my little bubble jacket. Couldn't tell me nothing about the 49ers. So when they traded him to the Kansas City Chiefs, I was pissed off. And I was done with the 49ers. And I was like, these NFL teams don't care about me. This is me, little girl. I mean, I might have been like 12, 11 in my feelings. NFL doesn't care about me or my feelings. And I'm not rooting for any team ever again. So when Lamar was in college, he played FSU, as they always do every year. And he murked us. It was a massacre. First of all, I knew it was going to be a massacre before the game even started, because before the game started, they had a whole tribute to Muhammad Ali. And I was like, oh, yeah, we about to die. This is going to be bad. This is going to be, this is like some gladiator stuff. Like, forget it. Maximus. So, yeah, he killed us. He killed us like Maximus killed everybody in the gladiator ring. Like, I think they scored like 65 points on the Seminoles. It was bad. And I was like, you know what? I respect this kid. Whoever drafts him, I'm going to be a fan of theirs, because they can see this talent that this man has. And that was it. Baltimore Ravens draft him. And as it turns out, purple is my favorite color. So it just all worked out.
Well, there we have it. Now you did mention Rita. Yeah, and Rita definitely can bring it when it comes to talking about the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes, she can. Yes, she can.
Well, we have reached the end of the show talking about the draft, but we haven't reached quite the point of this show is where it's over, because we have a game.
Oh.
It's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. You're in the hot seat for it. Are you ready?
I am ready as I'll ever be. I'm terrified.
All right. Now, I'm probably going to go before Lamar Jackson's time in Baltimore, but I'm pretty sure you know the legends of the Baltimore Ravens. All right. I'm going to go Ed Reed or Ray Lewis. If you had to pick one player to be like, okay, what defines the Ravens outside of, yeah.
It's Ray Lewis for sure. It's definitely him. I love Ed Reed too, but it's Ray Lewis. You know, when they won the last Super Bowl, that was all Ray Lewis. You know, like obviously Joe Flacco did well. I'm not going to take anything away from Joe, but Ray Lewis, I felt like at that point the sky was going to open up at the end of the game, and Ray was just going to descend to the heavens because, like, I mean, when you think of Baltimore and you know the legends, yes, Ed Reed is definitely in a conversation, but Ray Lewis is just next level.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go tight ends. I'm gonna go with the past tight end or future tight or tight end currently. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're gonna go Mark Andrews or the tight end, one of the tight ends that preceded him in Baltimore, and that was Todd Heap. He was a nice little he was a nice all pro tight end as well. So if you had to pick one tight end, you're gonna be like, okay, cool, this is my guy. Are you
I'm
gonna go
going.
with Heap or Andrews?
I'm going with Andrews, and I'm going with Andrews because Andrews has consistently helped out my fantasy football team, and I can't. I don't have a barometer for Todd Heap. Todd was great, but Mark Andrews, man, he's awesome.
Okay, all right. Now I got two teams that you probably don't like, so I'm going to mention them now. You did mention one of them earlier in the show.
Okay.
Let's see, Pittsburgh or Tennessee. Which team do you like the least?
Pittsburgh or Tennessee?
Yeah, because I know Tennessee and Pittsburgh have had Tennessee and Baltimore have definitely had their battles. You know, dancing on the logos and things like that. So, you know, Tennessee or Baltimore, which one do you like the least?
Probably Pittsburgh, because you know that's that in. Listen, anybody that is in the AFC North, literally all of them suck at life. But Pittsburgh, they're so awful. They're so awful. They're and the thing about it is, like, you want to hate Mike Tomlin, but you can't because he's so friggin' good. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, they drive me insane.
All right. Now I'm going to ask you a question just about your personal style of doing things. Speaking on controversial topics or joyous topics, which one do you like to do better?
I like talking about controversy because I can make them funny. It depends on
Okay.
obviously it depends on the controversy. Like, you're not going to talk about somebody's criminal record or anything like that, make it funny. But like, just controversial topics, I feel like it drives the conversation further, and there are some things that you can laugh at. And let's just take, like, Dylan Brooks, for example. Like, he tried to bring all the controversy in the world, and you got to be careful about the energy that you put out into the universe, because it always comes back to you, and somebody's going to have to teach that kid that.
Well, funny thing is, I actually talked about him on my last episode, actually opening the episode. I talked about him and Draymond Green. The reason why I talked about those two is because the thing with those two is, a thing I talked about is really, I don't think a lot of people talk about, is they do things to keep themselves in the league. Because if Dylan Brooks wasn't this guy, I don't know if he'd be in the league, because he kind of basically has to become a certain type of role player to keep himself in the league, just like Draymond Green had to as an undersized four-man. And when I tell people, like, they're like, hey, maybe he needs to tone it down, maybe do this, maybe that. I'm like, well, if he tones it down, then he could potentially not be the guy he is on the court anymore. So
but if you look at Dylan Brooks, like, Memphis is like, we're done with you. We're not going to take you back under any circumstances. So the difference between Dylan and Draymond is that Draymond actually was, like, pretty chill until he actually won. Like, he started getting them rings and he started puffing his chest and letting everybody know who he is. And I'm okay with that, because you might not have been the dude, but you at least contributed. You helped them win. And the game a few days ago, he put up 21 points. So Draymond's not typically a scorer, but he did show up when they needed him. So what happens now is, Dylan Brooks, you haven't done anything at all, and you are puffing your chest like you have, and that's a problem. And that's you talked yourself out of the league.
Nah, he'll still be in the league. He's not gonna go anywhere. He'll still be in the league. I don't think he's gonna be out of the league, because he's still, even with all the talk, he's still a very solid defender. So that's why I think with being a perimeter defender, which the way the NBA is, he'll still be there for somewhere. I'm not saying he's going to be, getting a max contract, but he'll still be somewhere.
Max
In the
contract,
NBA.
definitely no.
No. He's definitely not getting a max contract. I know that for sure. Now, of course, the last one I have. Now, do you like to cover more football events or basketball events?
Basketball. I love basketball. I love covering the NBA. It's a smaller locker room and for obvious reasons. And you really get to know the players. They get to know you. It's more fun. And basketball to me is more fun. I've covered NCAA, I've covered NBA, so it's just more fun for me.
Okay. All right. Well, it's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice, and you are off the hot seat. But you're not going from the show just yet. I want to thank you for coming on the show. I want to thank you for giving us your knowledge and your expertise on the NFL draft. Of course, talking about the Ravens. I had to give you the format to talk about the Ravens some too.
Absolutely.
But I want to turn the show over to you. Tell everyone where they can find you on social media and all the things that you're working on. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. I appreciate you for having me on the show, Mike. And I am Sports Talk Tasha. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I don't really use TikTok because I'm old. I don't understand it, but I'm out there somewhere. But you find me on all the social media platforms at Sports Talk Tasha. Of course, you can follow set_media, and that is the set social media page. And you can tune in to the set podcast on YouTube, and we will be available on all platforms starting in season 2.
All right. You heard it here first. And for those that don't know, I'm the host, Mike Patton. Of course, you can find me on Twitter. That's MikePatton 82. On Instagram, you can find me that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. Of course, touring the AFC South, you can find it on YouTube where you can see the actual visual. See, hello, you can see me. Then you can also find me on podcast spaces like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon. You can find me on Google Podcasts too. Yeah, I'm everywhere. So, definitely go ahead and subscribe. And so that way you don't miss any episodes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed. And we are out.